What can we learn from the Planet of the Apes franchise? Described by its creator as a social fantasy, it appears on the surface as a simple tale of intelligent apes versus humans, but it's so much more than that. Inspired by Jonathan Swift's 1726 fantasy Gulliver's Travels and the 1933 film classic King Kong, the popular Planet of the Apes series is a commentary on important political issues, but it's so artfully done it doesn't preach or seem too lecturous. The original Planet of the Apes novel, also known as Monkey Planet, was written by French author Pierre Boulle in 1963. It's an allegory and social satire commenting on single-minded fanatic attitudes and how these character failings will lead to our eventual downfall. In the book, complacency and a sense of spoiled privilege led to humans becoming subjugated by apes, who then fell into the same bad habits and faults themselves. The book also works as a mocking examination of celebrity culture, since the only talking human in a world full of apes is put on stage, getting fame and social prestige, despite being seen as a freak. The 1968 film version, starring Charlton Heston, was released during the Vietnam War, when the Cold War with Russia was at its height. The apes in that film were a metaphor for the Viet Cong, as well as for communists in general. The Planet of the Apes is a sci-fi cinematic classic that warns about the political and religious subjugation of other groups. The apes have a socialist system where every ape is born into their species-specific role. Gorillas do the fighting and policing, chimps are the doctors and scientists, while orangutan are the politicians and clergy. The ape's subjugation of the humans works as a metaphor for slavery. There's also a message about dogmatic religion versus science in the form of Dr. Zaius, who is simultaneously the supervisor of the scientists, but also the keeper of the faith, who wants to censor any knowledge that contradicts the sacred scrolls of the lawgiver. Zaius is more interested in hiding the truth about the past, when humans ruled, than he is about allowing his scientists to expand the frontiers of knowledge. The new rebooted film series covers different topics. The 2011 movie Rise of the Planet of the Apes deals with the dangers of unrestrained science and the responsibility of the medical community. James Franco's Dr. Rodman is like Dr. Frankenstein, a genius who creates something he can't contain and others pay the price for his hubris. There's another Frankenstein connection. Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein, wrote a book in 1826 called The Last Man about a global pandemic wiping out the human race. Rise of the Planet of the Apes also depicted the idea of a global pandemic, several years before reality made that concept nonfiction. The movie also tackles the subjects of animal abuse and experimentation. In the film, the cruel mistreatment of animals not only leads to Caesar's rebellion, but also to Koba's hatred of humanity, caused by his time as a tortured lab animal. Both versions of Caesar are saved from death as a baby. The 1970s version, played by Roddy McDowall, is marked for death in 1971's Escape from the Planet of the Apes, when his parents, Cornelius and Zira, go back in time, and Caesar is feared by Dr. Hessline, who wants to change the future. Caesar is saved by Armando, played by Ricardo Montalban. Many will know Montalban for his role as Khan in Star Trek. He hides Caesar in his circus. The modern version of Caesar, played by Andy Serkis, is supposed to be put down, but is taken home by Dr. Will Rodman. In either case, he is raised as a pet, before eventually becoming a king. Both are simultaneously the recipient of human hate and human compassion, making Caesar the balance between the two sides, and the one who tries to keep the peace. He's the one who doesn't hate either side. All the movies touch upon the hatred of the other, the way we mistreat or mistrust those who are not like us. The recurring theme is the importance of ending the cycle of hatred. When Caesar tries to keep the peace between man and simian in 2014's Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Koba accuses Caesar of not hating humans enough. The original franchise concluded with the Battle for the Planet of the Apes in 1973, which ends with a scene showing humans and ape children sitting together and playing. However, a tear rolling down the face of a statue of Caesar hints that the peace will not last, and that the worst nature of both species will end the peace and inevitable war between the two sides will resume. As Pierre Boulle pointed out, humanity needs to get beyond our petty flaws and prejudices, otherwise we will end up repeating the cycle of violence, hatred, war, and death. The Planet of the Apes works effectively on two levels: as a sci-fi adventure about humans in a world of talking apes, and also as a mirror to examine the flaws of humanity, using apes as a metaphor. The best message films are the ones that don't seem like message films, and the Planet of the Apes franchise is a great example of how a message film should be done.